Shop update. It's been months since I've done a shop update out here. Once race season ended, we kind of just parked the cars and then focused on other things. We ended up getting some major house projects knocked out that we've been neglecting for a while and caught up on some automotive work for friends and family and even knocked out a few of my own personal car projects, which is nice because those always wait the latest to get done. And then the holidays hit, and you know how it goes. The shop was kind of a disaster for a while, and now that the holidays are done and it's freezing cold out here, I finally came out here and decided to get to work. And I got the shop cleaned up pretty good last night and got all the tools put away and got the benches cleaned off and got my old car unburied from the back. Alex's car is in the trailer. When we winterized the cars, we stuck Alex's car in there. It really doesn't need a whole lot to be race ready for next season. Mostly just cosmetic stuff, but mechanically speaking, his car is solid. My old car needs a ton of work. I'll get into that later. And my new car got beat up pretty good that last race. Which, speaking of, I guess I'll touch on that now. Night of Champions. I actually made an update video on that race shortly after that race, actually, and we never ended up uploading it. And it's been so long now that most of the topics I touched on are irrelevant now. So I'll just really quickly hash through that race. Going into that last race of the season, Landon had the championship pretty much on lock. All he had to do was roll out there for the feature, and it was his, no matter what. Pretty much the next 5 or 6 guys behind him, which was his dad and Alex and me and I forget who else, Michelle. Wherever we finished that night was really going to change up where our positioning was in points. And I ended up with a car that was terrible that night. I made some suspension changes like I like to screw around with, and the car was not doing well. And I made a bunch of changes to kind of make the car steer a little bit better. Ended up going into the feature, starting front row outside, right next to Cordell, who decided to show up and kick our asses for one last time. And I went into that. I don't think I went one lap before I ended up getting past and ended up getting kind of smashed out of the way mid-race. And it was kind of frustrating, but I'll move past all that. Car got kind of beat up pretty good. Bobo sneaked past everyone pretty early on and then just dominated the rest of that race and ended up winning it. A big congratulations to Bobo for yet another win. I'm sure he's wishing that season was a little bit longer because he was absolutely on a roll. Aside from some suspension stuff that I'm going to have to do to this thing, I got a little bit of body work. It's hard to tell with the vinyls, but this side's all whacked in. But the car's kind of buried in parts right now. I just pushed it back here and haven't fooled with it since. This car, the last race it was in, I got blasted in this back corner and it buckled up. This corner is all smashed in, and I think my strut tower's got a good kink in it. And then the motor was making kind of a funny sound after that hit, which is really strange. And I thought it sounded like it was up in the cylinder head, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm just going to freshen up another one of the extra engines we have and throw it in it. All this is going to have to get tore out of here pretty soon. Right now, that's my plan for this car, is to just make it look a little bit nicer, put another basically stock engine in it. It'll have the head that's on there right now with the little cams in it, and get it race ready as a backup car for us. And I'm going to get my new car all freshened up and then hopefully get some guidance on suspension setup from some people that know better than I do. Like maybe I can make this car turn a little bit better, because next season is going to be a whole nother ball game out there. As some of you may or may not know, shortly after last season ended, we got word that the Rudicels would no longer be promoting for Lawrenceburg Speedway, and kind of came as a shock to us and a worry, because we weren't sure about the future of the track at that point. With no one to promote it, there was no guarantee of a 2024 race season, and we were kind of left in limbo for a couple months on that. And finally, Shane McHenry stepped up, where his son Corbin McHenry has actually raced a pure stock there at Lawrenceburg a couple times. They are going to promote Lawrenceburg Speedway for the 2024 season, so we are very excited about that. Along with this, they have changed the rules slightly for the compacts. Basically, the rule set that I've seen them post is more or less like Mudlick's rules, and there's no more vacuum rule for these engines, so we can actually build them up pretty good. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that massive horsepower is what it takes to win with these cars, because I was very successful with my old car, and it doesn't have squat for horsepower. In fact, I got my only win in that car, and all of my best nights have been in that. So, but along with that rule change means, and I've already seen many guys talking about this, we're going to have a full field of cars next year. Lots of guys are coming back to the Berg to race. And this is very exciting for me, because we haven't had a B main in almost 2 years, it feels like. We just haven't had the car count. So you can be prepared for some very good racing next season. There's going to be some new faces and some old faces, I'm sure, that had raced there in the past. And we're going to have to be on our A game, because last 2 or 3 years, I don't want to say it was easy to be a top 5 car, but it's certainly going to be more difficult this next year. So we'll see what happens with all that. So far, we don't really have any gigantic plans for the cars as far as like big power changes or anything like that. My new car has a pretty good setup in it engine-wise, and Alex's car is very mild. So there's a chance we'll probably just slap some cams in his car, because he's been very successful with the way it runs right now. We'll get a little bit more power out of his car, and then get my old car at least good for a backup car, and then I can finally start building the silver car that we have back here. I would really much rather start building it now, because I enjoy building them from the ground up more than I do repairing them or tweaking them to turn better, because I really don't have that science figured out yet. Hopefully, sooner than later, I'll get to start welding on this thing. This is another automatic car that I will be converting to manual, just like I've done the last couple of them. And I'm going to document that car a bit more thoroughly than I did the other few, because a lot of guys have asked me about what to cut and what to weld and where to drill and this and that about manual swapping them. So I will try and make a nice instructional video on how to manual swap your Cavalier. But aside from that, the only thing I got to do now is the actual work itself. I guess I'll turn this heater back on, because it's too loud to record my videos with it on, because it's like 20 degrees out here. And I'll get working on these cars. I'll keep you guys updated along the way. Well, see you guys in the next video.